Hello and welcome back to the Writing Flock. Today we are going to be doing our very first workshop on angst and how to hurt your characters and make it count. The quote for this workshop is, "Write pain so effectively your readers will be begging for it to end." Arabella K. Federico. This is something I like to keep in mind when I am writing angst, because when you're writing angst, you really want to make sure that you are giving everything you have because your readers will feel what you feel while you're writing. Now, it's important to remember that pain isn't just physical. Pain can be mental, emotional, spiritual. Grief, anxiety, depression, stress, exhaustion, panic, rage, shame, spiritual questioning, disappointment, and betrayal are all types of pain that can make angst more effective without specifically being a physical pain. Now, it's important to take a mix of these and really dive into your characters and think about how your characters are reacting to pain. Physical pain has mental, emotional, and spiritual consequences. For example, somebody who, let's say a hockey player, that will take something from my work in progress, a hockey player who gets very seriously injured is not only going to have physical pain, but he's probably going to have the anxiety from whether or not he'll get to play again. He is going to maybe have some depression if he finds out he's going to miss an important game. He may have grief. He may have panic when the injury occurs. He may be disappointed. He may be really angry at whoever hurt him or at himself if he hurt himself. So be cautious and cognizant of your characters as you are writing angst into your stories. When should you be careful about hurting a character? Authors should be cautious when using common real-life trauma like sexual assault, domestic violence, or medical trauma. This is especially prevalent in the fantasy genre, but is also frequently found in dark romance, sci-fi, historical fiction, and others. Consider the use of trigger warnings and its importance to the plot of your work. If it isn't absolutely necessary, it's probably left out. A great example of this would be when authors in fantasy revert to using rape as a plot point, when the object of that rape could be achieved in a different way. So if your goal is to traumatize a character, you can do that, say, through the loss of a limb, through watching somebody else die, through watching somebody else get hurt. You don't necessarily need to use rape or common real-life traumas that might trigger or otherwise hurt an individual that is reading your book. So when should you hurt your characters? You should hurt your characters when it makes sense in the plot, when everything's going too well, when you need conflict or resolution, when you want to hurt other characters, i.e. character death, when you want to get a character out of the way. Be careful to only use that sparingly, to raise the stakes or add tension, to even the playing field, or to lower the emotional tone of a scene, to make the reader sad, angry, hurt, sympathize or empathize with your character, or even hate another character. So, for example, I needed to get Barrett in a situation where he would have enough free time during the day, and as would Chelsea, to get them to a cafe so that I could have the antagonist show up. I did that by giving Barrett a concussion. Giving Barrett a concussion also served as the resolution to the conflict of Chelsea not admitting her feelings for Barrett. So when you're using angst, be very cautious and think about how you want that to function in your plot. Angst should not be used for angst's sake alone. How should you hurt your characters? Mental pain. What is their worst fear? What's the nightmare that keeps your character up in the middle of the night? When you know that, you know exactly where to hit your character where it hurts so that you are cutting that vein and making them really dig into who they are as a character. Now, physical pain depends on your character. Only use physical pain if it makes sense into your plot. Physical pain can have far-reaching consequences in your plot. For example, if you stab a character, they're probably not going to be ready to fight 2 scenes later unless there are a significant period of time between those 2 things. However, if you watch them see their family pet die, that is going to stick with them for a long time but not necessarily impede their physical progress. Emotional pain. What do your characters value? What is their goal, and how can you keep them from reaching it? How would losing it affect them? Say your character's goal is to get the girl. Well, what happens when they get right ready to ask that girl out or tell them that they love them, and they find out that that girl is taken, cheated on them? In some way, shape, or form, you keep them from getting that goal. Or what if it's getting the treasure? And they get there, they get all the way up to it, and the door closes in front of them and they can't get it. What if their goal is to save the world and, like Thanos, you get a snap? How does that affect them? Do they go off the deep end and become the villain? Do they go into a really deep depression that they have to work their own way out of? Think about that and use that to your advantage. Spiritual pain. What can you do to make your character question their faith or path? What can you do to get them to that rock bottom, soul deep level where they have to truly think about and question every ounce of their spiritual path? Why would God do this? Why would their deity do this? What if what they've been raised to believe isn't true? Using that as a vehicle for angst can really take your reader into a deeper level of understanding your character and diving into that character so that they feel what your character's feeling. When should you kill a character? Kill a character, but don't do it in the beginning. Make the reader love that character, make them root for that character, and then just before they reach the goal, kill them. The exception to this would be when killing a character in the beginning is the motivation for the actions that set the scene, i.e. murder, mystery, horror, etc. You want to think about killing a character. Are you killing a character for the plot? If the answer to that is yes, that's fantastic. Do it. If the answer to that is no, or maybe, really sit down and think about if there is a way to go about what you're trying to achieve without killing that character. Because sometimes the shock and awe factor isn't going to get you anywhere. How should you kill a character? Don't skirt by the scene. Dive into it. Feel it. If you aren't making yourself cry, you probably aren't making your readers cry. As my friend Shayla would say, cut the vein. Kill them slowly, agonizingly, with every ounce of fight they have left in them, or kill them just before help arrives. Just don't skirt the issue. You are killing them for a reason, so show the devastation that losing someone brings. Remember, everyone in your novel is a real person to someone else in your fictional world. They are somebody's brother, they are somebody's dad, they are somebody's son, they're somebody's girlfriend, they're somebody's sister, they're somebody's best friend. In real life, everybody is connected to somebody in some way for the most part. So when your hero goes through and they're killing all of these henchmen, remember, those henchmen probably have a family. They probably have friends. Maybe they're not close to them, but it's still going to affect somebody, even if it's just the villain who, everybody is not all bad. Maybe your villain really cared about that person. Maybe it makes the villain really angry. But you have to think about the repercussions of killing any character, even your minor characters. Don't stuff your character in a fridge. Fridging is the practice of killing off or hurting a minor character in order to motivate or torture a main character. The term comes from the world of comics, describing an issue of Green Lantern in which the hero's partner is killed and literally stuffed in a refrigerator for the protagonist to find. If you're going to hurt a character, that character must have a purpose and a motivation. You don't want to just kill a character to get him out of the way unless you're going to come back with that character and have a reason for them being gone. For example, like I said with Barrett, I needed that moment for Chelsea to have a crisis so she could think about what she was going to do to be what Barrett needed. She had to think about who she was, and then Barrett comes back to solidify that that was the right decision. He's also out for a little while, but still present to make sure that he comes back in and he kind of saves the day and jumps back into the plot. Now, if I was to kill Barrett and stuff him in the fridge just to hurt Chelsea, it wouldn't make for a very good story. When and how to fake a death. Faking a death can be a great plot tool, but don't use it too frequently. Your readers will lose trust if everyone you kill comes back to life. This is best used in fantasy, suspense, mystery, etc. But you want to make sure that as you're doing this, you're really thinking about whether or not this serves the plot. Sometimes, absolutely. Say you've got your villain and you want them to think that, oh my gosh, we did this, we won. And then you want to sweep it out from under their feet. Absolutely. That's a great way to use angst to further your plot. But if you're just faking a death to get a character out of the way, you might be fridging your character. So please be really careful and start to think about that. Now remember, your words have power. The words you use to describe pain, despair, etc. will change the way your readers perceive it. For example, burning versus throbbing, aching versus stabbing. You also shouldn't always just tell them about the pain. Show it on their face, in their body movements, in the way they interact with other characters. Are they groaning? Are you seeing blood trickle down their nose? Are you maybe really anxious because there's some pain? How does that anxiety show? When you're talking about mental pain, are they having hallucinations, or are they just an absolute anguish and despair because somebody that they love dearly just passed away? Really think about how you can show your reader that pain, because chances are they've experienced something similar to that in some realm of their life, and they will empathize very much with your character. So if somebody, say, breaks an arm, well, that's a really significant pain, and it's a very specific pain. So describe it that way, instead of just saying they broke their arm. Now let's try. Write a scene where a character is injured, either physically or mentally, with one of the following starters. Your goal is to hurt the reader's hearts and the heart of another character. Are you ready for your prompts? The first prompt is, "You're bleeding." Then you have, "Give him or her back to me, he or she growled, now." You can use the trope, "the single nostril nosebleed," or the trope, "who did this?" Another one would be, we should change those bandages. Or a hidden injury. One of my favorites, "She pulled the knife from her chest and smiled. What? Is that supposed to hurt?" Or, "Blood dripped from my fingertips as I stepped away. I'm sorry." It's odd the things you remember when you're watching someone die. And the final prompt, "Don't do this," she begged. "He tried to smile, but it looked more like a grimace." I have to. It's the only way you'll make it. Take 10 minutes, pause this video, and when we come back, I'm going to read you my example. I'll see you in a minute. For my example, I used the prompt, "Let's change those bandages." A new nurse leaned over Alex's bedside, hovering over his face, adjusting the oxygen tubing before cheerily announcing, "We should change those bandages. You'll feel so much better once it's done." Leah let go of his hand, quietly standing and gently rubbing her hand up and down Alex's leg. The nurse pulled at the bandage. It was stuck to the skin, pulling it away from his neck painfully. Alex winced, his eyes clouding with tears. "Could you be gentle? You're hurting him." "It'll only be a second, I promise." The bandage pulled away and bright red blood began to spurt from the incision. The nurse paled and depressed the large blue button behind the bed. Leah reacted faster, pressing the already soiled bandage back down onto the wound to Alex's neck while he writhed with panic and pain. His legs jerked. Leah's eyes welled with tears. "Stay with me, okay? Keep your eyes on me." Medical staff poured into the room. A doctor replaced Leah's hands and she was pulled from the room, forced to watch the love of her life fight for his, through the ICU's barely tinted glass doors. Alex thrashed against the sea of pain and blue scrubs, and the scent of coppery metallic blood wafted from the room. Chelsea's knees hit the linoleum tile floor. Green. She'd always remember. The tile was green. All right, so we have one more exercise to give a try. This time, you are going to take your character right up to their goal and then keep it from them. This time, you can kill your characters, but remember that you should consider whether or not killing your character serves a purpose. Does it attain your goal for the scene? Once again, let's take about 10 minutes, pause this video, and then give it a try, and then come back and I will give you my example. Welcome back. I hope that you really enjoyed that exercise. I am going to read mine, and then I want you to go out and make all of the angst your heart desires. We will come back for part 2. So once again, here is my example. Owen peered through the bars of the cell, watching in silence as the guards finally walked away. He'd heard Claire scream for hours, smelt the burns from the silver chains they pressed to her neck. He couldn't give away the secrets, but he had to do something. He couldn't let them keep hurting her. The guard's keys sat just out of reach on the desk beside his cell. He could hear Claire's ragged breathing. Sobs echoed from all sides of the stone walls. He spotted something. A silver rod was propped up on the door to his cell. It would burn him, but if he could grab it, he could knock the keys to the cells on the floor, maybe even close enough to grab them. He went for it, hissing as the bar burned his skin, seeming to melt the flesh from the muscle. The keys fell to the floor. He dropped the bar, reached out of the cell door, burning himself again as he managed to grab them. He made quick work of carefully unlocking his own door, his bare and bloody feet padded against the stones. The sight of his mate, tied to a wall, bloody, beaten, and nearly beyond recognition, did something to the wolf that lay dormant inside of him. She didn't deserve this. Those bastards are going to die. He unlocked her door, pulling it open with a yelp as his already damaged palm made additional contact with the silver bars. He rushed to her, pulling her free of her restraints and into his arms. I'm going to get you out of here, then we're going to shift. We'll get back to the pack and Dr. Jameson will help you. I swear it. Just stay alive, okay? Please, he begged her. He pulled the door open, and fresh but frigid air breezed over their skin. Claire wasn't shivering. Owen shifted. The midnight fur of his wolf shone black against the snow. Claire wasn't shifting. Claire. Owen reached out to her in his mind. Claire, talk to me. Claire. Owen nudged her with his nose. She was still breathing. Her heart was still beating. He nudged her onto his back, praying she wouldn't fall off, and he darted through the forest back towards the pack house. He rushed across the training field to the pack hospital. Dr. Jameson ran out, taking Claire from his arms. He shifted, uncaring of his nudity. You have to save her, please. Desperation clung to his scent and his features. I don't know how to live without you. Please, Luna mine, please stay alive. The moon goddess doesn't need you yet. But Claire's breath stilled, and then her heart did too. So what do you think? Tell me down below what you thought of this episode. Did you like it? Did you take something from this that is helpful to you? We want to hear. Once again, if you would like to share what you're writing, we'd love to see it in the comments, or you can DM it to us and we might read it on the next episode. But Angst Part 2 will come and we'll talk a little more about setting the scene for angst and where you can go and how to put in angst in any scene you write. Thank you so much. We hope you join the flock again, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.